Today's video is a little bit impromptu. I actually didn't plan to film today, but I knew I had to turn the camera on because so I have a 3-year-old daughter and she is usually a really great sleeper. At least now she is. But last night, for whatever reason, she woke up like 3 times, and today I am exhausted. And this feeling, it took me all the way back to postpartum, when I was waking up every couple of hours to feed or to soothe her because she was fussing, as newborns do. And it made me kind of take a step back and realize, like, oh wow, because I think it's so, because I used to wonder this, like, why do more people not talk about how difficult it is postpartum dealing with a sleep deprivation? And I guess because it's such a challenging time, so often, like, when we're through it, we're like, okay, whew, glad that's done, and we never come back to it. But having this terrible night's sleep and feeling the way that I do now, just exhausted, unable to really think clearly, like my capacity is just way lower, it brought me back to that season. So today I wanted to share with you guys, okay, what are some of the things that I recommend doing if you are currently in that season where you are having many nights of rough sleep. Maybe baby's cluster feeding, maybe you have a colicky baby, maybe there are breastfeeding challenges and things that are just making it more challenging than usual to kind of get rest, and you kind of wake up thinking, oh my gosh, like, how is it time to start the day? I feel like I've been up all night. So I kind of wanted to share like a couple of tips on how to manage that, a game plan of what to do with a newborn during postpartum after you've had a couple of rough nights sleep. In case we haven't met before, my name is Mayfair Clements. I'm the founder of Making a Mother, and I'm a postpartum care specialist. My passion is working with women through the 4th trimester. It is the biggest life transition that we face as women, and I really feel there needs to be more support in it. So that's why I created Making a Mother, and it's why I created this YouTube channel. So let's get into it. And make sure, guys, if you aren't subscribed, make sure you do subscribe. I'll be posting videos every single Friday, and make sure you give this a thumbs up because it's going to recommend this to all of the mamas out there who are currently in the postpartum trenches struggling with a sleep deprivation, to make sure they get the information that they need to help them get through this difficult but wonderful newborn stage. But before we actually get into any tips, I actually just want to acknowledge how difficult it is to feel sleep deprived. I want to acknowledge how difficult postpartum is, and I think that's important because, again, I just feel like we don't talk about it enough, which is what we're trying to change here on this channel. So if you're about that mission, then come along, join the tribe. But like, sleep deprivation is actually a weapon of warfare, right? Like, when someone's trying to torture an enemy, what they'll do is stop them from being able to sleep. A lack of sleep affects almost every part of the way that we function. It affects our ability to think. It affects our ability to reason, to make logical decisions. It affects our hunger. It affects the type of things that we crave. We tend to crave more sugar, more caffeine, more carbs. It affects our energy levels, obviously, how we show up. Like, it affects everything. So I just want to say that if you are in this season where you're not getting more than a couple of hours sleep at a time, I want to just acknowledge that it is difficult, and yeah, just give you a moment to acknowledge that as well. Like, you're not crazy for feeling the way that you're feeling. You're not crazy for feeling like there's a part of your brain that's literally switched off. It's true. Like, when we are sleep deprived, when we're dealing with the hormonal changes of postpartum, our brain is functioning differently. So that's the first thing that I want to say off of the bat. It is not easy to deal with sleep deprivation. Even if millions of mothers do it, it doesn't make it easy. Yes, it's a season, and I want to encourage you of that as well, that it will pass, this too shall pass, but it doesn't mean that it's not difficult in this period. So before we get into any tips, any game plans, I just want to acknowledge that you're not crazy for feeling like you can't think straight because you're sleep deprived during this period. It is normal. So give yourself that grace. And that, I guess, it ties into the first tip, which is, if you've had a difficult night with your newborn, the first thing that I want you to do is just to lower the bar. Okay, I want you just to, whatever you had planned for today, maybe you plan to go to a a baby and me sensory class. Maybe you planned that this would be the day that you would put your makeup on and like get yourself together and whatever. Like, I want you just to, because postpartum is so day by day. There are hard days, there are good days, and it's important to kind of treat it like that, to wake up each day and to ask, okay, where is my capacity at? What do I have the capacity for right now? And when you haven't had a lot of sleep, when it's been a difficult night of cluster feeding, whatever it is, your capacity is way down. So that's a mindset shift that I just want you to make, that your 100% today is going to look different to a day where you've had more sleep. So give yourself that grace. Have a look at your to-do list, the things that you plan to do, and see what can wait, like what can come off. Does the laundry absolutely need to be done today? Does the laundry need to be put away today? Can it wait another day? What are the things that we can kind of just take off of our to-do list to bring us a little bit of space and to make room for the fact that you're sleep deprived, like your brain isn't working at its optimal capacity? So that's the first thing I want you to do, is to lower the bar, ask yourself, what does my best look like today, and be okay with it not looking like how it might look in a different season or even on a different day postpartum. The second thing I want to mention is it can be really tempting after you've had a rough night's sleep just to stay in bed. This is what I tried to do this morning. My daughter woke up super early and I was like, okay, I brought her into the bed with me and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna try and close my eyes and get a little bit of sleep. But the sleep just wasn't coming. My daughter was like still a little bit fussy too. The sleep just wasn't coming, and that is not restorative for us. Like, if you are able to, you know, restore a bit of that sleep in the morning hours and it does feel rejuvenative to you, I highly recommend doing that. But there are some times where, like, whatever, say it's like 8-9 o'clock in the morning, your baby is down, but that's usually the time that your body would wake up. It may be difficult for you to go back to sleep at that time, just because that's not your body's natural rhythm and routine. And you can actually end up feeling more groggy if you stay in bed, especially if like the curtains are drawn, if you have blackout curtains. It can make you feel even more groggy and actually lower our mental health. Like, it can actually have a negative impact on our mental health. So what I recommend doing during those times is, instead of staying in bed, if you're finding that, okay, like my eyes are closed but my mind is still whirling, my eyes are closed but I'm basically still awake, what I recommend doing is getting up and actually starting your day, but not going full force with it. This isn't the day to, you know, put on your workout clothes and get a vigorous workout in. It isn't the day to, you know, go straight into work, whatever it is. I recommend starting your day, but starting it slowly. Maybe having a shower, a longer shower, maybe taking the time to eat a breakfast, but really slowly. Just start your day, maybe just stepping outside for a little bit of sunlight, and then I recommend catching up on the sleep at a later nap time from your child. So when your child is having maybe their like later nap in the morning, that's when I recommend seeing if you can go down for a nap as well. I have never been the type of person that naps very well during the day, but I remember in the UK, I think we call them home healthcare visitors or whatever. They come and see you a couple of weeks after you've had a baby, and she told me, you know, that old saying, like, sleep when the baby sleeps, but that was really difficult for me. So she said, you don't have to sleep when the baby sleeps, but at least try and be horizontal. So, you know, maybe your baby's napping and you don't feel like, you know, taking a nap during that time. At least just lie down on your couch, watch a vlog, read a book, do something relaxing. But I recommend getting out of bed, because it's probably going to make you feel more groggy the longer that you stay in bed. But do make sure you take the opportunity to replenish on the rest that you did lose during the day. Use one of your baby's naps. This is a great opportunity as well to call in for extra support if you have a partner who's around, if you have a friend who lives nearby, a parent. This is a great opportunity to say, hey, do you mind coming over for this morning, just giving me a little bit of time to look after the baby whilst I get myself together, whilst I, you know, have a little bit more rest and rejuvenate. Okay, so here's the third thing that would be on my game plan if I had a really difficult night with my newborn. And the thing that was on my game plan this morning as well, after having a difficult night with my toddler, and that is making sure you eat a high protein breakfast. Protein is probably the most impactful macronutrient for our energy levels, because when you're tired, when you're sleep deprived, the first thing that you will naturally crave or want to go for is simple carbs, like things like breads, things like pastries, sugary drinks, energy drinks, things that are going to give us that quick hit of energy. And while that's tempting, it's going to give you that quick hit of energy, but you're also going to be going on this, this graph with your sugar levels. But when we eat protein, it slowly releases energy to us throughout the day, and it keeps us sustained and fuller for longer. And that's really what you need. So sleep is a way that we get energy, and it's a really important way that we get energy. Like, you want to try and replenish the sleep. There's not many things that you can do to make up for, a lack of sleep over time. But there are other ways that we can get energy, and one of the key ways that we can do that is through food, primarily protein. So how I like to do this for breakfast is I will just have like a piece of meat, like whether it's like a piece of salmon, or I really like to use ground beef, or those are really the two things that I alternate between is salmon or ground beef. You could even do like a sausage, like a pork sausage or something like that, but like a good meat sauce. And then I'll just add, usually I have like onions or tomatoes on the side, and then I'll also have 2 hard-boiled eggs, or I might have them scrambled. And that's usually gets me to about like 40 to 50 grams of protein. And it really helps with my energy levels. It really helps to sustain me as well, because when you have a newborn, you're probably not like having the time to sit down frequently for those meal intervals. Like maybe you're sitting down to eat your lunch, and then that's when baby needs their bottle. So it can be difficult, but making sure first thing in the morning, or not first thing in the morning, whenever you have your breakfast, ideally as close to the morning as possible when you're postpartum. It's not the time to be intermittent fasting, but have a breakfast that is protein rich. And I really recommend you, like, I'm gonna put a picture up here of what like a breakfast typically looks like for me, which is like 40 to 50 grams, but I really recommend you actually look at what does 30 grams or 40 grams of protein look like. Because a lot of the time, and I used to be guilty of this, I would have a breakfast that I thought, okay, this is high protein, maybe like a little bit of yogurt, maybe a little bit of granola, and it was barely 20 grams of protein, or maybe even like a piece of toast with like salmon, and that's not a lot of protein. We need that protein to kind of replenish those energy levels. So that's the third thing that I'd really recommend if you've had a difficult night with a newborn, is try and put a pause on reaching for those simple carbohydrates and instead go for something high protein. And the thing is with this, if you still want to have like a croissant, I love a croissant, I love a pastry, if you still want to have like a fancy drink from Dunkin' Donuts, wherever it is, go ahead and do that, but just do it after you have that high protein breakfast, because it's going to set you up on a good base. So that's the third thing. Make sure you're having a high protein breakfast. That's really going to kind of give you a little bit more of an energy boost if you've had that difficult night with your newborn. So the next thing I'm going to say, and you're probably not going to like me for this one bit, you may not like me for this one bit, but actually before I go ahead and say that, make sure you go ahead and check out the Mama Reset quiz if you haven't already taken it. It's a fantastic way just to kind of figure out what you're needing to reset, because sometimes we do get to a point where it's like, okay, my head feels like it's everywhere. I know I need a reset, but also my house is a mess. Also, I have no idea what to wear anymore. I have no idea how to dress this new body, and I need a system, for my laundry, and everything just kind of feels a little bit chaotic. So we know we need that reset, but we don't really know where to start or what the most pressing thing is. So this reset quiz basically does that work for you. You answer a couple of questions, and then based off of that, I give you a personalized reset path with activities, really practical activities that you can do to help you reset. So make sure you go and check that out. The link for that is going to be in the description, or you can go to makingamother.net/quiz. But this next tip is going to be limit your caffeine. I know you're not going to like me, because it's like sleep deprivation and caffeine go together real bad. I get it. But and I'm not saying like don't have your coffee. What I'm saying is just don't overdo it with the caffeine, because again, the temptation is to do that, because it's like, okay, I'm tired, let me have an extra cup of coffee today. But what that ends up doing is caffeine actually has I think it's a half-life of around 6 hours. So that means if you have your cup of coffee, your last cup of coffee, say at like 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, and you're trying to get to bed at 10 p.m, half of that caffeine is still in your system, and that's going to make it really hard for you to fall asleep at night, and then you end up in this vicious cycle over and over again. What tends to happen too is if we have a cup of coffee when we're really tired, it kind of gives us that temporary like energy hit, and then you'll end up with a crash maybe later on in the afternoon. So you have another cup of coffee, and then by the time it comes to whatever evening, you still have that caffeine in your system, so you end up struggling to fall asleep, and then you're in this cycle of, you know, more coffee to keep you awake. That coffee does what's its job, which is to keep you awake, but then at night when you don't want to be awake, it's still keeping you up. So my rule of thumb here is I try not to have like a coffee with caffeine in it after noon, so after around 12. If I do want a coffee after that, because sometimes I like just like if I'm doing my Bible time, I sometimes do that in the afternoon, and I like just to have like a coffee with me. And I'm a coffee gal, like I love the taste of coffee. But you can find a really good decaf coffee blend. You don't have to cut out coffee all the way if you've had a rough night with a newborn. Like sometimes you need something to look forward to, right? Like sometimes at 3 a.m, I remember those times where it's like, okay, this is so tough. I don't know how I'm going to be able to wake up at 8 a.m. and start my day. But the thought of having my warm coffee to look forward to kind of kept me going. So you don't have to cut it off all the way if you don't want to. But I recommend just kind of having a cut-off point of, you know, around noon, and then if you want to have your coffee after that, make it decaf. Or if you just want to have something warm, it's a great option to have like a herbal drink or something warm but not caffeinated. And this is one of the tips that I recommended in my 7 tips for a positive postpartum, so you can go ahead and check that video out if you haven't already. Okay, so here is my next survival tip if you've had a difficult night with your newborn. It is to get outside. Again, this is something that might feel a little bit counterintuitive, like, okay, I had a really difficult night, all I want to do is just kind of, you know, lay on my couch, lay in bed for as long as I can. I don't have the energy to be outside. But again, that sunlight is gonna give you energy back, and getting that sunlight in, if you're heading outside, is also going to help us later on in the night. It's going to help to set our circadian rhythm so that we can hopefully have a better night's sleep later on in the day. There's something as well just about being outside that can kind of just make you feel a little bit more human, and can really help us from kind of stepping into that postpartum slump. There will be natural lows in your hormones, right? And that's completely normal. There'll be the baby blues, there'll be hormonal changes. You know, even for some women, each time that they breastfeed in the early days, they know it's kind of like a dip in their mood. So that's completely normal. Like, we can't all the way negate that depending on like how you're wired, but staying home in a dark room is only gonna make those feelings more exasperated. And getting outside doesn't have to be like anything crazy. For me, sometimes it would just be like taking a 10-minute walk to go to my local grocery store and get things for dinner. Sometimes it might just be grabbing my coffee and having it out on the porch. It might be just taking a little walk around the block. Like, whatever it is, it doesn't have to be anything fancy. And also, like, don't feel like you have to dress up or look amazing. Don't let that stop you. Go out in your sweatpants if you have to, like, go out in your PJs if you have to. But just kind of getting that fresh air, seeing people, it's just going to make you feel a little bit more human. And again, we talked about in the first tip, lowering that bar. So here, I personally, and it depends how you're wired, but if I had a baby and me class scheduled for the day, I probably would cancel that and just opt to do something a little bit more low-key. Maybe go to a cafe, right? Combine this as well with something that fills you up. So I love working from a coffee shop, or just sitting in a coffee shop, people watching, reading my book. It's something that fills me up. So that's something that I'd probably do. If you love walking, go ahead and do that. If you have a friend who lives local, invite her to tag along for the walk as well. But getting outside is going to get rid of a little bit of that grogginess. It's going to give us a little bit of energy back being in that sunlight. But again, don't feel like you have to do like anything crazy, but get outside a little bit. It's just going to help you to feel a little bit more human, and it's going to give you a little bit of that energy that you really need back. And by the way, guys, again, if you're enjoying these tips and you're watching on YouTube, make sure you go ahead and subscribe and like. This should be available as well on as a podcast on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts as well. So if you're watching there, make sure you do leave it a review. That really helps us out. Last but definitely by no means the least, in fact, I would say that this is the most important thing. This is what really helped me out on those difficult days, and that is just relying on God's strength. It says in the Bible that his strength is made perfect in our weakness. And this just looks like day by day, like taking it moment by moment. It's really hard when you're looking at the clock and it's 7 a.m. and you're like, I have another 12 hours before I can get a full night's rest. How on earth am I going to make it? But just reminding yourself that God is with you in this, allowing yourself to draw on his strength. A way that I like to do this is just by taking a deep breath. So actually, let's go ahead and do that together. Let's take a deep breath. And when I do that, when I take a deep breath, I remind myself that is how I make it from one day to the next, one moment to the next, one day to the next. It is breath by breath by breath by breath by breath. And if God supplies our breath, if he supplies oxygen for us, if he commands our lungs to breathe when we don't even know how to do that ourselves, how much more will he provide for the energy that we need to get through this day? So that's my final tip for you, Mama. Rely on God's strength. Know that he will get you through. I know that it is just a season, a difficult season. It's really hard to be sleep deprived, but it is for a season, and God will see you through. He will sustain you. He will supply what you need when you rely on his strength. So you've got this, Mama. I love you very much. And yeah, drop me a comment. Let me know which of these resonated with you, or if there's any that you feel like I missed. Like if you are currently in the newborn stage, or you're past it and you're like, this was my go-to when I had a really rough night with my newborn. That really helped me. Drop it in the comments and help another mama out. Make sure you subscribe, and make sure you go ahead and check out the Mama Reset quiz if you're looking for that reset. And I'll see you guys next time. I hope you guys enjoyed this.